Good morning, guys. Um, I just wanted to spend a couple different lessons talking about just the basics of parenting and the basics of kids. You know, um, Parenting is a lot of hard work. It's got a lot of ups and downs, just like anything with life. But it's very rewarding. Uh, and the thing about life is, people want to have life with no risks, no chances, right? Just love without loss. But the thing that makes love really all the more rewarding is the fact that there is a risk factor to it. You can't live your life guarded and truly live, and you can't live your life for yourself and truly live. And one of the great things about kids is they remind you, they force you to grow up. They teach you things about yourself, seeing it in a different perspective that you can't just be told. It's something you have to experience to kind of make sense of it, kind of understand about it. And so let's look at this. So let's just look at some basics of know what's going on with your child, know what's going on with their development, just the basics of parenting. Okay, um, the first really big principle about parenting is that the children are not yours, you are their steward. Okay, so let's break this down. They're not yours. Legally, they are yours. I get that. Biologically, they are yours. But if you go into parenting with the idea of these are my kids, you're going to miss the bigger picture. Okay, part of the bigger picture, part of it, part of it, is that you cannot make your child's decisions for them. You cannot always be in control of them about everything. You can't micromanage everything. You can't teach them how to live and be an adult and how to by making all their decisions for them. I'm not saying you can't have rules, but the authoritarian structure doesn't work very well. Yes, you can beat your kids into submission, and you can cause them to have lifelong problems. You can totally do that. I mean, that's an option. It's just not the best option. But also realizing that you're a steward, it also kind of tells you that you shouldn't be a permissive parent either. There should be rules. There should be consequences. See what I mean? We think in terms of either or. Either you believe in spanking and you're abusive, or you don't believe in spanking and you're just a crazy leftist liberal. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of this, oh, it's black and white. And most of life really isn't that black and white. Especially when you have kids, you start realizing that. And if you're scared about having kids, like, here's the thing: you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. You're not going to be the best parent in the world. That's okay. Your purpose isn't to be the best parent in the world. The point is here: do the best you can. And one of the best ways to parent is actually just being present in your kid's life. How crazy is that? Sometimes we think that we have to know everything, we have to do everything right, and no. The best parents are parents who are present. Parents who are present. So that first idea there, the children, they're not yours. You are their steward. You have been entrusted with them. You are helping them to grow and to develop into a healthy person. You're not trying to make little clones. You're not trying to make them think and act just like you. You're not trying to make them value the same things you value. Like, for instance, I'm a musician. My kids have to be musicians. No, they don't. They can be athletes. Now, obviously, you should instill values. Absolutely. Um, you know, religious values, moral, something, some kind of moral root, hard work, discipline, loyalty, self-respect. These are great things, values that you can instill in your children, absolutely. But what I'm talking about is trying to micromanage and trying to make the decisions for them, not giving them the idea of free will. Now imagine this: God created us and gave us free will. And so then we in turn take our kids and say, you have to do it my way, or you're wrong. You have to do everything. And it's like things that really aren't that big of a deal. We kind of just overbear on our children, and it squashes their creativity. It squashes their hope, their dreams and passions, and it really causes them to have a lifelong of problems and obviously resent you. But see, the answer isn't going to the other extreme of becoming permissive either. You are their steward. You've been entrusted with something, which means you should neither be permissive nor, overbearing, but help them to develop as a person. So the next thing, what you establish in one stage carries over to the next. That's kind of a big part. If you get a divorce Okay, that's going to affect your children. It doesn't matter how you justify it, what your reasons are, anything like that. When there is a constant in a child's life and it's removed for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, death or divorce or whatever else, it's going to have an impact on the children. That's going to cause issues for when they're teenagers, issues for when they're young adults, when they're grandparents. This is going to be a problem that stays with them. I know a guy who was abandoned by his father when he was a child, and now as a grandpa, he still has problems with rejection. He still has. That's not something that you just bounce back from. When babies are not held for the first couple weeks, when they don't have that touch, that connection within the first couple weeks of their birth, it causes lifelong problems for them. It's debatable whether they can ever bounce back from that, and that's something that carries over into their toddler years and how they act, into their teenage years and their insecurities, mental issues that can develop from things like that. So, I know this might seem like, oh yeah, I understand that, but when you have kids, you'll understand even more that what you establish carries over. Do you want to have a good relationship with your teenagers? Do you want to have them respect you? Do you want to have them listen to your advice instead of just cutting you out of their life and going and being rebellious? Then put forth the time when they're toddlers, before they become teenagers, to listen to them, to respect them. And you might say, oh, I don't have to respect my kids. Okay, and listen, okay? If you do not show that authority both ways, it's really not going to work. Now, obviously, you're the parent, okay? But the idea of I'm the boss, it's my way or the highway, the buck stops here. I get what you're saying, but you're going to have a problem later on. You can't go to a situation by just establishing your dominance over them and turning it into a thing of, well, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to bully you. You really can't take that route. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that you can't spank or anything like that, but you really have to be aware of what you're doing from the child's perspective, okay? Because it really is, a lot of this is what their take on the situation is. You know what I mean? And if you do not clarify, people come to their own conclusions. How much more so for kids who don't have their reasoning fully developed? I still know that nowadays, I'm not young anymore, and I still have times when I'll be sitting there all the, that's why they did that. And it's taken me years after the fact. So let's kind of tie some things in here, okay? When your child is a baby and they're crawling, they can start to understand the concept of no. Now, be careful with this one, okay? I see some people spanking babies and stuff. It's like, well, you might want to calm down with that. That just doesn't seem like a great idea. But they are able to understand the idea of no, and you pull it away. No, see what I mean? And you can start to establish that, which will, having them in some kind of an order, will help when they're toddlers. Obviously toddlers are always going to test their limits, but you can still have them in a set schedule that helps them with sleep and how they act. A lot of times your toddlers will act out because of a lack of sleep. I mean, it's not always going to happen, but a lot of times that's what happens. Every child is different. And then as you stick to the structure, once again, yes, establishing rules, but also establishing a relationship with your child. That really helps as they get out of those toddler years and into, elementary age and preteen and then into teenagers. It all adds up. It keeps, your child doesn't suddenly step out of their toddler and step into this next stage. That doesn't happen. It's this connecting process. And so the things that you do in this stage are going to carry over to this stage. Do you want them to do this? Well, then you need to start working on it here. One big thing that you see is not expecting perfection from your toddlers, and then when they're teenagers and they're perfectionists, they lack security, they're maybe bullies someone else. Oh, well, I don't know where they got this from. It's like, well, maybe you should encourage, direct, that kind of stuff. Instead of saying figure it out as they're a teenager, maybe make it a process of learning together. Let's do this. Here's a good process as a parent to learn, okay? I do, you watch. Okay, I got this from Chris Songson, Church Boom. I do, you help. Stage 3, you do, I help. Fourth stage, you do, I watch. Okay, this teaches your kid how to. There's not such a big learning curve. You don't have to go from 1 to 10. It teaches your kid how to learn. It makes it less scary. They can learn at their own pace. It makes it where it can be a thing of connecting. Don't be afraid of them failing. It's okay if they make a mistake. It's okay if they mess up. It's okay if they fail. That's all right. You don't have to have perfect kids. Okay, it's okay if they mess up. Let them know that, hey, it's okay that if they mess up, because check it out, they're going to mess up. Okay, kids are naturally going to try and get your attention. They love being the center of the attention. It's the center of the world. They're naturally going to go for that. So you really don't have to, try and instill that in them. Obviously, you shouldn't make your kids the center of your world, though. I mean, that's obvious. What people do is they either put their kids way up here, like the whole world revolves around them, or they put them at the very bottom and they say, well, children should be neither seen nor heard. And there's this happy, middle place where we are a family, we're building together for the family's well-being. Help out, you're doing these chores because we're all contributing to the family. That makes sense, right? I mean, I come home from work and I do the dishes so that my wife doesn't have to. I come home from work and I do the laundry so that my wife doesn't have to. Why doesn't it make sense, too, that the children should contribute, too? Well, I'm going to revolve my whole life around you. You're going to stay here for rent-free. You're going to get free food. I'm going to do all your laundry for you, do all your dishes for you. And why? That's just not healthy. You need to teach them that we're a family unit. We're working towards each other. I go to your games and I support you. I respect you. I treat you like a person. I listen to you. Now, I expect you to also listen to me and respect me. Now, I am your father, and I am your authority. But authority shouldn't be abusive. It actually disqualifies you from authority when you abuse your authority. So keep that in mind, okay? Now, I know a lot of you have already decided what you believe, and you're like, oh, well, this guy, this, or you think I'm saying something I'm not, or whatever. Here's the thing. Go ahead and get mad and argue with me and everything, but then eventually you're going to learn some things, and your views are going to be challenged. If you as a parent don't have your views challenged, something's wrong. I mean, I'm saying things that I used to believe other things on. I'm saying things that I'm just now learning. I'm saying things that I haven't quite grasped yet. And check this out. I'm oftentimes confronted with my own methods. Here's a good example. Spanking. Okay, so I was a firm believer in spanking. Everybody who didn't spank was just, permissive parents that hated their children, obviously. And then as I had parents, as I have children, now I have 5 children. 5. You have to learn how to manage your time, how to shift things, and you also have to remember how to pop it out of gear. Don't go from, work stress to now, I don't have time for my kids. You have to literally turn it off. And here's the thing. You're going to have one kid that's acting out and one kid that's listening. So you can't take your frustration with the one that's acting out on the one who isn't. You have to shift gears very quickly. As a parent, you're always learning how to do this kind of stuff. I'm speaking from experience. I have also raised 2 other before the 5 that I've got now. I know what I'm talking about here. There are things that I still think, oh, this is the way it's done. And then I realize, you know what, I might be wrong on that, or at the very least, wrong with this child about that. See what I mean? And don't go into parenting with the idea that you have all the answers and that your view should never be changed. Go with it like this. I'm going to keep learning and adapting. If I'm doing something wrong, or when I find out that I'm doing something wrong, I'll try to fix it to the best of my ability. But the idea here is keep trying. That's the real basis of all this. As a parent, just try to be present and try to do a good job. It's really not rocket science. You have to remember that people have been raising children long before there were ever books written about it, long before there were ever podcasts or YouTube videos or that kind of stuff. So don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff, especially. There will be times when it seems like the whole family's falling apart. It's okay. Breathe. You'll get through it. What's happening now isn't for always. For instance, you might have conflict with one of your teenagers that you might not have in 10 or 15 years. It's okay. Remember that every moment is a blessing. One of my sons actually died, and it's one of those things you always carry with you. And it's one of those things that you can't do anything to stop. It's just, you feel so hopeless and helpless. But with that being said, it's just be thankful for what you have, and you can't be afraid to make mistakes. So those two things that we talked about, you are their steward, act accordingly, and the things that you establish in one stage will carry over to the next stage. I'll keep going. We'll keep talking about this on the next video we talk about. Thanks. See ya.